أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وآله الطاهرين اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. One thing that we have to bear in mind is that tests are always good for us, although we don't like them, although we like the comfort of the ordinary life. But I wonder if you ever have asked yourself why always life has these bumps on its way, and why we cannot just live in comfort for these few years that we are on the earth. Apparently this is just part of life. Allah has created this life in this way, that people are tested again and again and again. And if they succeed, then He raises them their level. If they don't succeed, okay, they have to stay in the same class until next test comes. And this is why the hadith, we have a hadith from the Prophet, peace be on him, that Jibreel said to the Prophet that people are seeking comfort in this world, but inform them that I have not created comfort for this world. This world is not a place of comfort. It's not a place of abode. It's a place of testing, becoming, and then going to where we have to have our resting place in the hereafter. So we see these tests coming on the way of these great people. And we have in hadith, أَشَدُّ النَّاسِ بَلَاءً الْأَنْبِيَاء ثُمَّ الْأَوْلِيَاء ثُمَّ الْأَغْرَبُ وَالْأَغْرَبُ. Those people who have most of the tests and calamities in life are the prophets, and then the awliya, and then those who are closer and closer according to their ranks and degrees. And this is something which we have to bear in mind. Someone said in front of Amir al-Mu'minin alayhi salam that, Ya Allah, do not put me in test. La taftanni. Do not put me in test, in fitna. And Amir al-Mu'minin said, what do you mean by that? Do you mean He shouldn't give you anything? Because Allah says, إِنَّمَا أَمْوَالُكُمْ وَأَوْلَادُكُمْ fitna. Your property, your children are fitna for you. They are test for you. So if you say, God, do not test me, means God shouldn't give you anything at all. Because everything in this life is a test. Now, when we look at these stories, we see that prophets, peace be on them, were put through severe tests. And one of the most, of course, one of the severest tests, which the story of the Quran, of this surah tells us, is this test which Yusuf is put through. It's not only this moment that Imra'atul Aziz has seized him, has locked the doors. No, after that, for several months or probably years, they were annoying him, soliciting him, to the extent that at the end said, قَالَ رَبِّ السَّجْنُ أَحَبُّ إِلَيَّ مِمَّا تَدْعُونَنِي إِلَيْهِ. Ya Allah, prison is better for me than what they are asking me to do. It means that they were constantly annoying him and asking him for this, either for Imra'atul Aziz or others. Now here in this moment, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions one very, very interesting thing. وَلَقَدْ هَمَّتْ بِهِ وَهَمَّ بِهَا. She, of course, intended towards him, and he would have intended لَوْلَا أَنْ رَأَى بُرْهَانَ رَبِّهِ, had he not seen the burhan, the proof of his Lord. Now, most of the exegetes say that according to human instinct, he would have done it, except for the fact that a proof of the Lord was shown to him. And the exegetes here have made very funny stories about this burhan. For example, some of the exegetes say that he saw a verse of the Quran written on the floor that لا تقربوا الزنا, for example, do not commit indecency, do not commit fornication. Or he saw Ya'qub, who's concerned and putting his finger on the lips that you shouldn't do this. Or he saw Zulaykha putting a piece of cloth on her own idol, saying that I'm ashamed of this idol. And then Yusuf suddenly realized, if she is ashamed of the idol, why shouldn't I be ashamed of God? this is the funniest story that has been mentioned, telling that Zulaykha was more, of course, committed to her own faith than Yusuf was. And sometimes when you look at these stories, you really see the extent of the understanding of some of the so-called scholars about the Quran and about Anbiya and prophets to create such stories. Now, what here is mentioned, Burhan Rabbi, is much above this. He had seen the Burhan, the proof of the Lord in this world. He had seen how things are attached to Allah, how things are sustained by Him, how things are completely dependent on Him. And such a person never commits a sin like this. So he had seen the Burhan of the Lord. Lawla arra Burhan Rabbi. Had he not seen this Burhan, he would have intended as well. Now, كذلك, and in this way, by that Burhan and proof that we had shown him, لنصرف عنه السوء والفحشاء, we turned away from him indecency and evil. Not turned him away from indecency and evil. Not كذلك لنصرفه عن السوء والفحشاء. This is what Allah would do to us. That if we are very good, Allah would turn us away from evil, would turn us away from fahsha and indecency. But if someone has seen this Burhan of the Lord, كذلك لنصرف عنه السوء والفحشاء, evil and indecency, whenever they come across such people, they just deviate their path and go away. This is isma. This is the meaning of isma. It's not that Allah doesn't allow it or Allah forces su and fahsha to deviate from them. No. They have become such a hub of everything which is good that shaitan cannot get close to them. إِنَّهُ مِنْ عِبَادِنَا الْمُخْلَصِينَ. He was one of those purified. And those purified, shaitan, although he's very idiot, very stupid, right from the beginning, he said, I'm better than Adam because I'm created of clay. He knew one thing, that he can never get close to mukhlasin, those who are purified, not mukhlis. Mukhlis is someone who tries to purify. Inshallah, all of us try to become mukhlis. It's very difficult to become a mukhlis person, a real sincere person. However, that is one position. Mukhlas is someone who's already purified completely. And Iblis, despite all his stupidity, knew that it is impossible for him to get close to these people. They are just like a shining lamp which drives away all darkness. كَذَلِكَ لِنَصْرِفَ عَنْهُ السُّوءَ وَالْفَحْشَاءَ. In this way, we turned away from him. Not turned him away from, turned away from him evil and indecency, because he was from Ibadun al-Mukhlasin. Okay, this was the moment of that temptation. He was not tempted at all. First of all, he had that position of shukr and gratefulness to Allah. إِنَّهُ رَبِّي أَحْسَنَ مَثْوَاي. And secondly, he had advised Zulaykha as well, إِنَّهُ لَا يُفْلِحُ الظَّالِمُونَ. Zalimun would not prosper. And of course, as we heard from our brother yesterday, it was an advice for himself as well. These awliya are very humble, very humble. As later on, when the story develops and these ladies are summoned by the king of Egypt, asking them what's happened a few years ago before Yusuf was in prison. What happened? They all said, no, he is quite innocent and it was us who tempted them. And then Yusuf said, why I wanted this to happen, why I wanted this testimony, because I wanted you to know that I have not betrayed you. I wanted the Aziz know that I have not betrayed him. However, وَمَا أُبَرِّئُ نَفْسِي. I do not purify myself. I do not put myself above these things. I am a human being and I may fall. Look at the humbleness and humility. I may fall into these things as well. وَمَا أُبَرِّئُ نَفْسِي إِنَّ النَّفْسَ لَأَمَّارَةٌ بِالسُّوءِ. In a way, he's trying to somehow exonerate Zulaykha and the ladies that this is nafs, it happens. They have done something wrong, of course. I'm not putting them on spot. I just wanted you to know that I have not betrayed. That's all. This is great ethics of Yusuf. One is really amazed how this man, with this stature of manners and ethics and morality, is so humble. وَمَا أُبَرِّئُ نَفْسِي إِنَّ النَّفْسَ لَأَمَّارَةٌ بِالسُّوءِ إِلَّا مَا رَحِمَ رَبِّي. My Lord had, of course, kept me from all these. Now then, the rest of the story, we pass through this part very quickly. وَاسْتَبَقَ الْبَابِ. They ran towards the door. That means Yusuf ran toward the door, which was locked by Zulaykha, and Zulaykha ran after him and ripped off his shirt from behind. And as soon as he opened the door, opened the lock, فَأَلْفَيَا سَيِّدَهَا لَدَى الْبَابِ. They found the husband of Zulaykha on the door. Now, this is a situation, isn't it? Sayyidaha, and Sayyid means master. But because in Egypt they use Sayyid for husband, the Quran has used Sayyid. It's very interesting the way the Quran uses the terms, because in Egypt they called the husband Sayyid. Here it has used Sayyid as well. فَأَلْفَيَا سَيِّدَهَا لَدَى الْبَابِ. They found the husband on the door. Immediately Zulaykha, of course, now caught in such a situation, قال ما جزاء من أراد بأهلك سوءا إلا أن يسجن أو عذاب أليم. What is the punishment of someone who has a wrong eye on your family? Meaning that he wanted to have relation with me. I didn't want it, and I have actually ran towards the door. قال هو هي راودتني عن نفسي. Yusuf said that she actually solicited me. I didn't. I'm innocent. And then, of course, there was a big case here. Who's right, who's wrong? And شهد شاهد من أهلها. They eventually chose an arbiter from the family of Zulaykha, because if she was guilty, the punishment was great. Now, the shahid from Ahlaha, this witness from his family, the arbiter said that, look at the shirt. If the shirt is ripped off from behind, that means he has run towards the door and she has run after him, and he is innocent. And if it's otherwise, if the shirt is torn from before, from afore, then he is lying and she is innocent. Of course, the shirt was ripped from the behind. قال إنه من كيدكن إن كيدكن عظيم. And the husband found out. However, it was a very difficult situation. He didn't want this go out of family. It was a great shame on Aziz that his wife was doing such a thing. Of course, the wife was not desisting, as we see later on. So the only thing he said to Yusuf, Yusuf, أعرض عن هذا. Yusuf, do not mention anything about this. And he did not. He did not mention, as if nothing had happened actually. For several months, or probably going into years, he mentioned nothing about this, as if nothing had happened, until the insistence of Zulaykha actually made him to ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, please release me from this, or relieve me from this situation. قال رب السجن أحب إلي مما يدعونني إليه. يدعونني means there were several people, many people. Zulaykha was a powerful lady, of course. And after that, although her husband had told her, don't say anything about this. However, he was trying, had said, Yusuf, don't say anything about this. And Yusuf was not telling anyone what Zulaykha was doing, but he was asking God, please help me out of this situation. And she was sending mediators, she was sending people, ladies, men, to solicit Yusuf, because he was قَدْ شَغَفَهَا حُبًّا. She was actually infatuated by that love. At the end, ثُمَّ بَدَى لَهُمْ مِنْ بَعْدِ مَا رَأَوُا الْآيَاتِ لَيَسْجُنُنَّهُ حَتَّى حِينٍ. After all these, that Zulaykha saw that he's not giving in, and her husband realized what she was doing, they thought that the best measure is to put Yusuf in prison. And this is very interesting. For a guilt that he has not done, for purity, for decency, for morality, he was put in prison. And of course, you would know when an innocent person is alleged like that. And what was the allegation of putting him in prison? Of course, the allegation was that he has some eye on Aziz's wife. And this was even worse than prison. The allegation, all these things. However, of course, he was quite comfortable with that. He had actually asked Allah for this imprisonment, so that he gets out of this very dirty court of Aziz with the women and all those around it. Now, قال رب السجن أحب إلي مما يدعونني إليه. Prison is better for me. It's very important that we know what is good for us, what is not good for us. Very important. I mean, anyone looking at these verses and this story would say that Yusuf was living in the comfort of that house, of that palace actually, having everything, and he should have just given in to the desires of Zulaykha, and he would have had everything, and no one would have known about it except God, of course. But he knows that prison is better for him than anything else in this situation. Now, let's come to the story of Karbala to see what parallels we can find here. The temptations that came to Imam Hussein, to every individual in the army of Imam Hussein alayhi salam, to go to the comfort of life and abandon Imam Hussein alayhi salam, or Imam Hussein himself abandoning his mission, but they knew what is better for them. And the point is, there's a thick barrier, there's a thick veil of time between us and our choices, that immediately we cannot realize what is good and what is bad. But in retrospect, if you look at the story of Yusuf alayhi salam, you see this was the best possible choice for Yusuf, to go in prison and then come out with that incidents of the Malik seeing the dream and he interpreting the dream, coming out, proving his innocence. This was the best sort of, the best possible choice ahead of him. And now that in retrospect we look at what happened in Karbala, we all also see the best possible scenario that God could have actually planned for Imam Hussein and his followers was that martyrdom. The best possible choice and the best possible scenario. Had they, for example, given in, or they had just abandoned the fight and gone, such a huge epoch-making incident wouldn't have happened. In retrospect, things become very clear. And this is what in Surah Kahf, actually, Ashabul Kahf, they were put to sleep so that they passed through the thick darkness of the veil of time to see after 300 years what God has done. They didn't know how this power of the Roman Empire can break and Christianity can prevail. And God said, okay, you want to see? Let me show you. He put them in 300 years of sleep and then woke them up and said, now look, everything was changed. Roman Empire was defeated. Christianity had prevailed. It's only time which is a problem here, doesn't allow us to see. And for those, of course, with basira, with insight, they see through the time. They see through the time. There's one report from Imam Ja'far al-Sadiq alayhi salam about Abu al-Fadl al-Abbas. Let us talk about Abbas tonight. He says that Inna Ammi al-Abbas kana nafidul basirah sulbul iman. He was nafidul basirah. He had an insight which penetrated through every darkness, penetrated through time. He could see things. Abbas can be praised for two very distinct qualities. One was his knowledge and insight, as in several traditions we have. That the Amir al-Mu'mineen, for example, said, "Inna waladi al-Abbas zuqqa al-ilma zaqqa." My son Abbas has been fed with knowledge. Knowledge has become part of him, actually. And also this basira that Imam Sadiq alayhi salam says that our uncle Abbas was nafidul basira, had penetrating insight. And of course, the faith in him was quite solid, sulbul iman. And the other quality was his chivalry, valor, and bravery. This was the other strength, the other quality which everyone knew Abbas for since very, very young age. Now, let me tell you a story. In Safin, Abbas alayhi salam should have been about 14 years old, 13 or 14 years old. But he had such a bodily construction that everyone thought that he was about 18, 20 years old. And that's why they were quite afraid of him, this strong son of Amir al-Mu'mineen. He was only 14. And when Abbas came to Imam Hussein alayhi salam in Karbala asking him permission to go and bring some water, and Hussein alayhi salam, according to some reports, he did not want to allow him because, of course, he knew that it's not possible to go and bring water. He said, "Do you not remember that we together in Safin, when the water was shut to our troops, because in Safin, Muawiyah with 85,000 troops had come and shut Furat again to the army of Amir al-Mu'mineen. And Amir al-Mu'mineen sent some troops to open the way and bring water. And Hussein ibn Ali, Abbas, they were part of those troops who went to open the Sharia and to bring water. And he says that, do you not remember that we together went to bring water in Safin? And now you should not deprive me of going and bringing water here. And according to some reports, this was one of the reasons that he somehow induced to convince Hussein alayhi salam to allow him to go single-handedly for the Sharia, for the river. Now, in Safin, a couple of things I mentioned about Abbas in Safin. One is that because he was very young, Amir al-Mu'mineen didn't want him to go to battlefield so that the enemy could see this very, very young boy has come to fight. So when he insisted to go to battle, Amir al-Mu'mineen said, put a veil on your face and go. And they saw that a strong man has come, of course, about 18, 20 years old, they thought, has come, and he wants to fight. They didn't know who this man was. You know, it was quite clear that he was a young man. And he asked for contest, someone to come and fight. There was a very strong man in the army of Muawiyah called Abu Sha'sa. And it was popular knowledge that he could fight against 1,000 men single-handedly, or he had made people to believe in such a thing. So when they saw this young man was going with his horse and coming and asking for someone to go and fight. Muawiyah said, Abu Sha'tha, why don't you go? He said, well, are you ridiculing me? Should I go and fight with this unknown person? I fight only with high quality men. I don't fight with these young boys. And he said, so what should we do? He said, I have 7 sons. I send one of my sons to kill this man. The first son went. In a blink of an eye, it was on the ground, killed. He sent the second son, the same thing. All 7 sons were killed by this unknown person in Siffin. And then Abu Sha'tha was boiling with rage and said, you have killed 7 of my sons. I will know what to do with you. And this Abu Sha'tha himself came to fight, and it didn't take long for Abbas to kill him as well. And it actually put the whole morale of the army of Muawiyah so low that everyone thought the battle is over. Now, when this young man came back and Amirul Mu'mineen kissed him and took the veil from his face, everyone was amazed. This was the 14 years old Abbas that had gone to battle in this way. And that is why Shemr wanted Abbas to be separated from Hussein alayhi salam. That's why he brought that immunity for him, the aman, that you come and join us and you are safe. It was not because he was in favor of Abbas or wanted to save Abbas. It was because everyone was afraid of Abbas. And he was that sort of person who could fight the bravest men of Arab. Now, in Siffin, when he was bringing water, there was a commander with him. I'm telling this to somehow compare people. There was a commander who was actually commanding them towards the river to bring water, and they succeeded, of course. They broke the lines of the enemy and they brought water in Siffin, and the river was taken, and everyone in Amirul Mu'mineen's camp said, now is the time to shut the river towards the army of Muawiyah. And Amirul Mu'mineen said, no, we are not going to shut the river, the water. They are human beings, they have to drink water. We are not going to retaliate in this way. Now, this man was Shabath ibn Rab'i, the commander. Sa'at ibn Su'an and Shabath ibn Rab'i were leading the troops towards Sharia. This Shabath was in charge of the foot soldiers in Karbala in the army of Umar ibn Sa'd, fight against Hussein. He was a very prominent man. At the time of the Prophet, peace be on him, he was with Sajah, that prophetess, the lady who claimed to be a prophet, and he was her mu'adhan. They had adhan and he was their mu'adhan. Then he converted to Islam. Then when the issue of Uthman came up, and the companions of the Prophet came to kill Uthman, he was one of them. Then he was one of them who claimed that they want to seek revenge for Uthman, joined the Muawiyah. Then he joined Ali, and in Siffin he was with Ali. And then he joined Muawiyah, Khawarij, and he became one of the heads of Khawarij. Then at the time of Imam Hassan alayhi salam, he joined Imam Hassan, then he joined Muawiyah afterwards. Then in Karbala, he wrote letter to Imam Hussein alayhi salam. One of those people who wrote letter, and one of those people, Imam Hussein called by name in Ashura, Ya Shabath ibn Rab'i, wasn't it you who wrote me a letter to come to you? This was one of those people. And then he came as a commander of Umar ibn Sa'd to kill Hussein, and as a thanksgiving for killing Hussein, he built a mosque in Kufa. He built a mosque in Kufa, and this is one of those accursed mosques which has ever been built. And then he joined Mukhtar to fight against those who fought against Imam Hussein alayhi salam. This is very funny, isn't it? How people can change. And then he joined Ibn Zubayr to fight against Mukhtar and killing Mukhtar. And anywhere there was money, anywhere there was deceit, anywhere there was deception, this man went. And let's put these two side by side, Abbas and Shabath. Shabath, of course, was quite a grown-up man, and Abbas was a young man. You see the perseverance, the straight attitude of Abbas, and these people who were in the army of Umar ibn Sa'd. And the way we can show the glory of this day and this incident is just by comparing the people who are on either camp. It is absolutely enough to tell us who was right and who was wrong, despite all the machination that they try to make to say who is on the right side. Comparing the people would be enough. Now, Abbas alayhi salam had two sons. One of them was Ubaidullah ibn Abbas, and he was quite a knowledgeable person. When Imam Zain al-Abidin looked at Ubaidullah ibn Abbas one day, tears came to his eyes. He said, no day was harder to the Prophet than Uhud, because on that day his uncle Hamza was martyred. And after that, no day was harder to Prophet than Mu'tah. Mu'tah was a battle in the 8th year of Hijrah, in which Ja'far ibn Abi Talib and Zayd ibn Haritha, the stepson of the Prophet, and Abdullah ibn Rawaha, they were killed. 3,000 men the Prophet sent towards Syrian territory, which was under Roman Empire, because they had killed Prophet emissaries. And then they faced with 200,000 troops. The emperor himself with 100,000 troops was passing by, and they had gathered 100,000 troops to fight Muslims, 3,000 men in front of confronting 200,000, and they actually stood and fought. They didn't change mind saying because we have 200,000 people we don't fight. They fought and they were martyred. And Imam Zain al-Abidin says no day after Uhud was harder to the Prophet than the Yawm Mu'tah, the day of Mu'tah. Then he said, looking at Ubaidullah ibn Abbas, وَلَكَنْ يَا لَا يَوْمْ كَيَوْمِ الْحُسَيْنِ. But there is no day in Islamic history like the day of Hussein. That 30,000 people, all of them claiming they are following the Prophet, they come and they kill the grandson of the Prophet and all his family, and in that very brutal way, Abbas ibn Amirul Mu'mineen, like Ja'far ibn Abi Talib, losing his both hands. Wa sallallahu ala Muhammadin wa alayhi tahirin.
We now have 10 minutes for question and answers. If there are any questions from the sister side. From the brother side.
Assalamu alaikum. Thank you again very much. Yesterday we talked about knowledge and wisdom, and today you've touched upon something called basira. Is there any tie-up between these things, and how can we look at it in a comprehensive manner? If you could give a comment on that, please.
Basira is insightful knowledge, is something which you find out by seeing certain things. It's not knowledge in the proper sense that we know. It's actually seeing through certain facts and certain things. What is unknown to us, what should be actually visualized by mental analysis, by purity of the heart. This is basira. It's insightful knowledge. It's not knowledge in the sense that we know it.
Hello, sorry. So if we take that and compare that to wisdom, how does that tie in?
Yeah, it's very close to wisdom. Wisdom is about actions, it's judgment. Basira is, of course, to realize things. And then, of course, if you are wise, you make the right judgment. To realize things, seeing through other things.
Any question from the sister's side?
Alaykum as-salam.
With regard to the verse when the Aziz says to Zulaykha, قَالَ إِنَّهُ مِنْ كَيْدِكُنَّ إِنَّ كَيْدَكُنَّ عَظِيمٌ. Why is the feminine plural dhamir used rather than the singular when he's referring to her specifically? And what did the exegetes say about this?
The exegetes say that, of course, he is referring to the type of women, not to Zulaykha specifically. And there are several reasons for that. First of all, because Zulaykha was from a very high status family. He didn't actually want to bring accusation directly to her. And secondly, because actually all the women in the court were the same. It's not the type of, because female type is like that. It's because all the types, the ladies who lived in the court, just when the verses قالت وقال نسوة في المدينة, the ladies in the city, of course, the ladies in the city, not all of them, those who were in the court, they said, امرأة العزيز تراود فتاها عن نفسه. They had heard about it. Who had talked about it? We don't know. Probably Zulaykha herself had talked about it and invited to come and see Yusuf and to judge for themselves. And then every single one of them was tempted to somehow solicit Yusuf directly. So maybe what he is meaning, and of course that is his statement, Allah is just quoting, that all of you women here are like this. You are, as soon as you are in love with someone, you forget all the ethical and moral values.
Assalamu alaikum.
Alaykum as-salam.
Throughout the story, the Aziz seems to be honorable. He, despite his stature, he saw a slave and thought about adopting him as a son. When he saw Nabi Yusuf and Zulaykha at the door, he looked for truth rather than jump to conclusions. And he was someone Nabi Yusuf wanted to demonstrate his loyalty to. At the end, what was it that led him to agree or to send Nabi Yusuf to jail?
Well, that's not quite known to us. The Quran says, مِن بَعْدِ مَا رَأَوُا الْآيَاتِ. After they saw the signs, they decided to do it. Maybe it is a possibility that he couldn't do anything else with Yusuf. Either he had to punish Zulaykha or divorce her or kill her or something like that. Or had he Yusuf in the court, it would have been the same story all through. And also, he may have been afraid of his own reputation. And all these were resolved by putting Yusuf in jail. And Yusuf was not going to say anything against this man, against Aziz. So, the way the verses ثُمَّ بَدَى لَهُمْ, it's transpired for them that the best decision is to put Yusuf in jail. They were actually deciding on different options. And at the end, they decided to put Yusuf in jail. And the instigations of Zulaykha was also quite influential in that, because Zulaykha says to the ladies that وَلَئِنْ لَا يَفْعَلْ مَا أَمُرُهُ لَأَسْجُنَنَّهُ لَأُعَذِّبَنَّهُ أَوْ لَيَكُونَنَّ مِنَ الْمَسْجُونِينَ. Something like this. What is the verse? وَلَئِنْ لَمْ يَفْعَلْ مَا أَمُرُهُ لَا يُسْجَنَنَّهُ أَوْ لَيَكُونَنَّ مِنَ الصَّاغِرِينَ. Yes, that Zulaykha was influential in that she had actually threatened Yusuf with that, and she said, look, I will fulfill what I have said, and they put him in jail for that.
Sheikh, I have one question to ask. You did say that Hazrat Abbas was intelligent. All throughout Islamic history, who would you say is more intelligent? Prophet Nuh, Job, Adam?
Who is what, sorry? Who's more intelligent?
Who's more intelligent? Who stands out? Moses, Prophet Nuh, Job, Luqman, Adam, Eve, who? Imam Ali, who? Who's really that human being to say is the most intellectual one?
Well, we don't know. Of course, we know that our prophet excels all other prophets. But we are not in a position to be able to judge these very high caliber people. They are quite unfamiliar in these terms to us, for us to judge. The Quran says, تَلْكَ الرُّسُلُ فَضَّلْنَا بَعْضَهُمْ عَلَى بَعْضٍ. These prophets, we have given some of them more fadl or more merit than others. But who is above who, we don't know. The only thing is that 5 of the prophets are ulul azm. They have higher station than others, and these are Nuh and Ibrahim and Musa and Isa and Muhammad, peace be upon them all. And other prophets, each of them has been given something probably which was different from what other prophets were given. So we cannot judge between them.
Sheikh, I'm just trying to visualize, when the Prophet Yusuf's shirt was torn from behind, did God have a part to play in it? Because for a shirt to get torn from behind, either the material must have been very, very of a low quality, or there must have been some kind of a struggle. How can one imagine that a shirt gets torn from behind when somebody just pulls the shirt from behind?
Well, I don't know how they made shirts in those days. This is long time, about 3,000 years ago. So probably the fabric was quite delicate in that hot weather of Egypt. Well, God plays part in everything, of course. Yeah. Okay.
Okay, we'll end there. Thank you very much. Salawat.